All right, well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the weekly game. So, myself, AB, we have Turk, and we have Drew here. Notice who's who.
I'm Turk.
I'm Drew.
Do you
This
want
is
to
AB over here.
You want to get your Instagram and
I don't even know what my
Twitter,
Instagram is, but I'm Twitter at Turkleton.
I guess
At TURKULTON.
And I'm at Mr. Dick, MRDIC.
and if anyone wants to give their Tinder account, I guess you can give that away as
I
well.
have a grinder.
You have a grinder?
Talk about that. I gotta grab that. Do we have the wager board? Is that
we do have a wager board. So.
speaking of grinder?
Speaking of
I have a
Grindr,
feeling we're gonna have a wager that
there it is.
ends in
Hey,
some sort of grinder.
Oh God.
The loser has to start a grinder account.
So
Thank you.
It's like someone
Man.
was using it for Grindr.
Well, that was my
Oh yeah.
really important. It's Florida, remember?
Did you draw the United States? It looks like an upside down mushroom.
It's the United States, and then that's
the mushroom cap.
Florida right there.
If you're a
I was trying
Mario
to-
brother, that's what.
We talked about this last week, and somebody that listened to the episode said they wanted to see what I was drawing. It doesn't look like the United States, but I was trying to draw the area where you'd most likely have people betting on Kevin Durant going back to OKC. You gotta remember that.
Right. Yeah.
But it ended up looking like my 4-year-old could do a better job, not of the penis, but of the United States. Maybe pretty
The
clear.
United
about
States of penis.
that. No, definitely not.
Definitely not. No.
I need to move this bag so I can put the.
So a lot of stuff going on in the world of sports, right? So real quick, let's hit up the NFL. So since the last time we talked, the NFL has really absolutely turned itself on its head from a playoff perspective. I mean, and really in both conferences, right? So somehow, some way, I can't even tell you how it happened in the last seconds of the game. The Chargers pulled it off against the Chiefs, and that right there has sent shockwaves through the entire AFC or AFC playoff perspective here. What are your thoughts on that game right there?
They got exposed a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the NFL, just like other sports, it's really tough to beat the same team twice in the same year.
It is.
So, Kansas City took them out the first time. The Chargers, they knew they had to get this game.
What do you think about that last second play of going for two for the win? Was
Yeah, I think that
Ballsy
freshman on
bad
that play.
lucky. So Chargers score a touchdown. Couple seconds left in the game. They choose to go for two for the win instead of the tie.
It's funny because I knew about this, but so many teams are going for two with such great frequency,
Yeah.
and it has less to do with like the obvious reasons. You know what I mean? So
At the end of the game, with no time remaining, it's one thing in the first quarter going for two as a strategy. It's a whole nother thing with the game on the line.
you either win or lose.
Yeah. So they opted to not go with the guaranteed points, take the tie, go into overtime.
Maryland did that in a college game. University of Maryland did that against the Ohio State Buckeyes at the end of a game and didn't get it, so they sacrificed the chance to tie and go into overtime to try to go for it, and then they missed out. I think the Chargers probably, like Drew just said, needed to take that game down, right?
Yeah, with Kansas City, so look at this. They had 34 seconds left on the clock. Chargers had the ball, second and goal at the 10. Kansas City had an 81.8% chance of winning that game. 34 seconds left. All they had to do was get the stop. But we all know,
Their defense is not made to get stopped.
yeah, they've been struggling in the red zone, and their defense. Offense still looked pretty good, even with Hunt absent.
Bottom line, they can put up points with the best of them. So
Absolutely.
you only need to stop them in the end, right?
I mean, they were.
Which they didn't do.
I think we're kind of talking around the elephant in the room as to, you said the NFL's been turned on its head. There's specific things that have happened. Kareem Hunt's absence from that offense is completely. I mean,
Absolutely.
they were inhuman. That offense was unstoppable,
Absolutely.
and now they're very human.
Although
Right, so-
although Damian Williams came in and he played respectively, he doesn't add the same dynamic element of that potential home run on every single play that Kareem Hunt adds.
Absolutely, and
He's dynamic.
and specifically the dynamic aspect of Hunt and Hill. Yeah, I mean, they both can basically do the same
Two
thing.
of the fastest people
They
in
can
the
both
NFL.
do the same thing with a screen pass.
Did
They were creating a lot of yards after the catch. Like I haven't looked at those stats, but that combination of yards after the catch for Hunt and Hill, don't you think that's probably highest in the history of the league, right?
It's huge.
Did anyone see
Yeah.
the Stephen A. Smith take on this game?
No.
So it was
Why did you see it before? Or is it in the corner? Of the
no.
screen?
I saw it the other day. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to Google it and check it out. It's very funny.
No, but I'm hoping at some point Trey puts it above our.
He mentions
Yeah, but he won't be able to hear it. Unless
one of the most compelling matchups of
Pauses
that
us,
evening that he was looking forward to was Hunter Henry, who hadn't played all season and didn't play in that game, being matched up against Jackson, who didn't play either. And you see this, and Max Kellerman is just looking at him with this really confused look, because he was saying how Spencer Ware was the key, that's going to be the key focal point of their offense.
Also out?
He was out.
So here, this is interesting. This actually makes me think of something that's kind of relevant. A couple years ago, when ESPN constricted the number of reporters and on TV television personalities that
The
they
purge.
had, they purged, and they forced a bunch of these specialized guys to start
Take on
operating in other
new roles.
sectors of professional sports. And like Stephen A. Smith is a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He shouldn't ever be on television talking about football. He's just it's an opportunity for him to flap his gums and quite often propagate or speak on something that he doesn't know anything about, right? This is interesting, and the reason that ESPN had to purge is because they overpaid for the Monday Night Football. That Monday Night Football destroyed the makeup of that network because they never recovered the money that they committed to that single event. It completely changed the landscape of that network.
And unfortunately they paid way too much for that broadcast, and they've really had to skimp on the announcers.
Right.
Holy shit, this is the worst crap on television.
Right.
I mean, Jason Witten last night did some very similar things to the Stephen A. Smith, just talking about incoherent, irrelevant, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but look, 2 weeks ago, I wanted to talk to you guys and tell you how much Booger McFarlane is the best thing going on that broadcast, and that's unfortunate. But dude, seriously, like at this point,
tower,
even that dude is
Judging.
terrible.
His little tower on wheels.
Even that dude is terrible on the broadcast. This is the worst.
This is not coincidental. I think has everything to do with they overpaid. They had to purge a lot of talented people. Now they're forcing. I mean, I'm trying to think of
Jason
Buster
Witten.
Only talking
Was
about
it-
basketball. Like,
was
what
it ESPN?
planet are we on right now? The fuck does Buster
Was it
Only know about
ESPN that did a
basketball,
couple
dude?
last year? I think they experimented with the different camera angle. Was that Monday Night
I
Football?
believe so. Yeah.
Where they put the camera right in the middle of the field, just hanging above the players.
Oh, the little ball camera? I
The
like
ball-
that
They
camera.
I
still
like
have
that.
that,
I
so
liked it too.
yeah.
It didn't get the reception that.
No, ESPN did some stuff a couple years ago where they had the little Hispanic chick in the mornings on Serena something, and just the way they kind of changed everything from the way it had been for so long. They did it in a really bad way. The people who got it right is the NFL Network and Good Morning Football. That
Right.
show, the format, the people they have, the mix that they have, it's a really, really well done show. And the girl they have on the show to add color, she's bearable, right? Some of these people that they have on ESPN, it's total fish.
It'd be
out of
great
water,
to be
right?
able to go back. I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but watch the 2014 highlights of ESPN broadcasting, and then watch the 2018 highlights. The talent pool is so
Night
much,
and day, dude.
so
Night
much
and
more
day.
shallow. The Jason Witten thing is the perfect
He's an
shitstorm of them needing to underpay someone, and
I think
Tony
they thought-
Romo's success has had
That's it.
made them feel like this for some reason.
They thought Witten would do what Romo did.
What kind of logic? Who's the person that said, "Hey, Witten, he played with Romo. He's gonna have the same charisma, the same
It's
perspective." Like somebody
Maybe it's
actually
terrible.
thought and made that correlation, and is employed right now by that network. They made that correlation just because of what Romo was able to do
Look,
in the broadcast booth.
I don't want to begrudge him his position because, you know, he put in his work and he was good at his craft and he deserves to sit up there and talk about football, right?
Right. Were you
but
talking about
he
Romo or
doesn't-
Witten?
I'm talking about Witten,
Okay.
right? But he doesn't deserve to be on the Monday Night Football broadcast when so many other talented dudes out there are calling phenomenal games all over the country. Andre Ware for one, right? Dude, Andre Ware's paid
Right.
his dues. He's done his thing. Heisman winner, played in the NFL for 7-8 years. I mean, dude, he's good on a broadcast. If you've ever watched an Andre Ware broadcast, he's really, really good.
And
then
there's
they got-
tons of really good.
Yeah, and then they got this
play-by-play,
dude out there who can
right.
barely form a sentence. I mean, it's honestly it's sad to watch. And they just extended that whole entire crew for another season. Now look,
The Monday Night Crew,
the Monday Night Crew,
including Witten.
including Witten. Dude,
I didn't know that.
Booger's not terrible, right? Booger's the best thing they have going. But Joe Tessitore or Tessitore or whatever the hell that dude's name is, first of all, I don't think he can stand Jason Witten, and I'm pretty sure Jason Witten like constantly has that dude in the headlock giving him noogies.
And you know who called the Browns game on Saturday? Mike Tirico. There's a guy.
Dude,
Talk
he's-
about a
he's
guy
good.
that ESPN let get away.
He was good, man.
And now he's like the best. I mean, wow. I bet how much do they miss him right now in the Monday Night booth?
Dude, I'll bet
Apparently
you
not.
they must miss Dennis Miller at this point.
You
The Monday Night Food, man.
You said that in
Remember?
text earlier.
I
It's
did.
right.
Because
Yeah.
honestly, man, I thought that was the low point Monday night. Because that followed Madden and Summerall, right? I mean, which was probably one of the greatest pairings in Monday night. So Dennis, no matter what he did, it wasn't going to work out. But he wasn't terrible, right? He was the first person to add a little bit of color outside of sports
Right.
into the Monday night. Right? They were trying to bring it to more people. I think it did what it was supposed to do. Maybe they could have picked someone better than him. Maybe Dennis Leary instead of Dennis Miller.
I don't think that would have worked, but maybe
He
somebody
couldn't be clean
a
right?
little less pompous, because Dennis Miller,
Yeah.
with his giant vocabulary, loves to make people feel like he's
But that was
smarter
kind
than
of
them.
his shtick, right?
Right, but certainly they had to know that was going to have a shelf life in that booth. But somebody else charismatic and well spoken.
Until
but
you
not
have a
quite as
signature
big
Chris
of a dick.
Collinsworth slide, then you're not. We're half-assing it
Dude,
at the four-letter network
I
right
didn't
now.
recognize what was going on in that video.
That
When you first
slide
said
is
it.
so
The-
it's signature, right? Like every
We need to
weekend,
work on
every
that.
Sunday night,
because I can't really see that.
someone slides in, and it's old Chris.
Right.
Yeah, we should have.
And it's, by the way, that slide is the best thing that he does on any given broadcast.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it. I would take
I guess
the
that's
Sunday night broadcast over the Monday night broadcast
Dude, I
10
would
out of
take
10
the Thursday
times.
night broadcast over the Monday night.
You know?
I would
only
take
thing-
the Amazon broadcast that's two women calling the entire game.
But you know what? Like I think I saw. Was it a Yahoo or was it a something streamed the game?
Amazon streams a lot of the
and
Thursday
it was
night
not
games.
terrible. Oh, you're right. They stream every Thursday.
Well, they
night
bought
game.
the.
No, they
Yeah,
had
but this-
some of
this
them.
was
I
the-
don't think
they
they
This
bought
was the
Thursday
Sunday.
night.
They had a lot of them.
It was a Sunday early game, and I think it was a London game.
Yahoo.
They did
streamed
that on
it.
Yahoo.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a pretty good pairing.
That's because there are dozens of teams
The
calling
only way-
football games all across the country, pro and college, that are better than the
Like,
two guys on
Jason
Monday night.
Witten.
They would be like the fourth team on on Fox.
The only way they can make the
It would be the
Monday night
regional broadcast that's
It's like, wait,
only
so are we call, no,
in,
we don't need
that's
to call him
only being called in Arizona when you look at the map on Sunday, what game's being broadcast where, and it's like the Cardinals are in one state.
Yeah, and
Witten
the whole
should
country
be,
has
Witten should be
Patriots.
on the team that's calling that game, cutting his teeth, learning how to call a football game.
The only way
That's
you
the
can
truth,
make
right?
that broadcast team hated more is if you threw Joe Buck in there just for vitriol.
It would be
He would
way
slide
better,
in
like,
on the
God.
other side.
Dude, I mean,
Oh, God.
everybody hates Joe Buck.
Chris
It's the one thing
Collinsworth and
everyone
Joe
can agree
Block.
on.
It would just be a constant slide the whole time. They wouldn't even say anything. They would just
Everybody
slide.
hates
But-
Joe Buck
by the
unless it's
way,
your team that he's blowing.
I
on the
honestly
broadcast.
think
Right,
that
and then
dude,
you love
that
him
dude's some
for
of the
that.
best.
Yeah.
He does some of the
Shout out
best
Red
work
Sox.
out there, man.
He
He
can't.
does.
He can't argue.
You
with-
can't, man.
No,
he's
he's good,
good.
man.
You just hate that he talks shit about your team, like, openly. Like, I know
Baseball's the
I know
worst.
he has money
Yeah, that's his
against
For some
every team,
reason,
no matter
He's
who
a
I'm going
Sox
with.
Dodgers fan.
For some reason, when he's calling a baseball game, maybe it's because it's so prolonged. There's so much of his talking.
I think his team
There's
is
something-
Cincinnati. I think he's from Cincinnati. He's from Ohio.
Okay.
I think he said something along those lines. He was like, "These are my teams." He's like, "But I mean, I haven't been a fan for a long time."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he grew up a Bengals fan.
Yeah, no, he's clearly a Red Sox fan, so I don't know what we're talking about. I don't think there's anybody out there that believes that he's not a Red Sox fan. Right? And he's probably currently a huge Rams fan.
I think
Right?
Red Sox fans believe he's not a Red Sox fan, but they're the only
That's
ones
true.
who-
That's why
they're
everybody
the
hates
only ones
him.
who don't.
'Cause
That's
everybody-
true, man. Everybody
Because he gets little jabs in that you're so
Every-
busy focused on how much he shit on your team that the little Red Sox jabs that he take, you don't even notice them, and then everyone in Boston's ready to slit his throat, right?
Yeah. Why you? How could you say
I wish
that
those hair
about
plugs would have
Bryce?
fucking killed this guy.
All right, so real quick, all right, let's wrap up the NFL because we're gonna need some NBA stuff here after the break. Where I mean, I think we had a really good conversation earlier in the pre-production. We're gonna talk about some groundbreaking NBA shit. So real quick on the NFL. So the other thing that happened is the Patriots lost 2 in a row. Are they reeling or do we care?
Well, you have to.
Yes and no.
You have to care.
So they're reeling, but
You
we
don't
care.
have to care. I don't have to care.
If
The Browns are in the
touche.
playoffs.
So if you're in the playoff hunt, let me rectify. If you're in the playoff hunt, you should care.
I don't think
Are
you
they-
need to care. I think they're done.
Are they a wounded animal?
That is absolutely correct.
They're
That's
a
what
wounded
they are.
animal? Okay.
It's the best. That's the best way to describe them.
So I'm scared of them because Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and if it's close, it's probably going to go his way, right? What we had talked about last time, which showed extremely evident this last week, is the decline of Gronk. Gronk has declined this season at an extremely fast rate. I think someone on ESPN said it best when they said he is a sports car. He's like your classic muscle car that you take around the block once a month, and that's about it. Right?
And I'll tell you what.
It used to be awesome.
I've said it before. A lot of people, most people, have forgotten that a couple of years ago, when Gronk got injured mid-season and was out for the rest of the year, that wasn't. That's not what I'm trying to talk about here. I'm stuttering through my. Hopefully, you can edit this out. So Gronk got injured middle of the season. I don't know that it had a huge impact on the team finishing out that year, but when the next season began, Gronk was absent from that team, and people started calling for Brady's retirement. People were like, "He's done.
Right.
It's time for Brady to step away from the game." That was an actual
I
movement
remember
that
there was
occurred.
a 4-game
No Gronk.
stretch. Yeah.
4 games. By the end of the 4th game, the national media was starting to buzz about like
They went to the
Brady's-
Super Bowl that year.
Brady's
They
done
might have won the Super Bowl
because
that year.
Gronk came back, and then they started firing on all cylinders again. I really hope we can edit that part out where I
No, but you know,
Whatever.
it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And you're right. He is the engine that makes them go. He's that spark that makes them go.
absolutely
But they are
was.
they are a wounded animal right now. He is not the same player he used to be. And what's even crazier is I feel like it's in his head at this point. At this point, I think he feels responsible for what's happened the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, he was talking retirement before this season started,
Yeah.
and he's also
Yeah.
Rob Gronkowski, so maybe there's nothing but a little Slim Jim guy in his head, like on the commercial. You know what I mean?
Snap it to a Slim Jim.
Maybe that's the only thing that's in his head. Is just
I mean,
thinking about going to the club after the game.
Between
you know
him
what I mean?
and future Gronk, I hope they're not eating the Tide Pods. So that's all I gotta say.
I'm just. I don't think there's much going on there. I don't think he's
So they have,
concerned about it.
They have Bills this week. They got Jets next week.
I mean,
Should,
it's probably easy win for them, right?
Both of those games are going to be W's, right?
They probably have
So-
the easiest remaining schedule.
So having said that,
Texans have
we
Yeah.
have the
Eagles this week, Jaguars next week.
bad
Look,
time to get the Eagles.
a bad time to get the
Jaguars,
too,
spoiler.
right? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
they hate us, and
Bortles was in when you guys.
So we
played
were
the Jags the first
red
time,
hot on
right?
the Texans. We hear there's remaining 2 games. Now they're dead in the water, or
no. I mean,
No, but I
I
think-
think we have a chance to go 50-50 in them. I mean, I think we have a chance to win them both.
I think what we just talked about earlier, we were watching highlights, and what the broadcast projected to be the final order for the playoffs had the Patriots eclipsing the Texans, and we all kind of rolled our eyes at that. But now that we're talking about who
it's
who the
most
Patriots
likely,
play,
yeah.
that is
It's
the most likely
likely.
scenario, and that's why.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're discounting the Texans. They're being realistic. I do think the national media is
Straight the
completely ignoring the Texans. Every national media member that I hear talk about the playoff picture, they talk about San Diego, they talk about New England, which the Texans, in my opinion, have a considerably better chance to make it to the big game than New England does right now.
The last 2 teams I want to touch on real quick, the Titans and the Colts. Holy crap! I mean, who would have ever thought that the AFC South would be repping the way that they are this year? I mean, I think most people would have said the AFC South is the weakest division in football, all 8 conferences, right?
Right.
And look at what they're doing.
So can we talk about the myth that the Belichick tree produces nothing but duds in the NFL? Because you got the Texans head coach and defensive coordinator fell out of that tree.
Yeah.
The head coach of the Titans fell out of that tree. So what are we talking about here? Like,
did the head
how
coach,
real is that?
What about Whitecheck? Didn't he come out of
Didn't-
Belichick at some point or no? Or
I'm
he
not.
came,
I'm not positive. I
What
feel
about
like-
Andy
he came from
Reid?
Doug Peterson.
I feel like Andy Reid and Belichick coached together.
I don't think Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid he's looked at as having his own tree at this point,
Yeah.
with good
I
reason,
think
right?
He comes from the Holmgren Weiss
I-
kind of
Right.
tree, yeah, not from
Yeah.
the Parcell Belichick.
I believe that as well. But yeah, I mean that's
Look, Belichick
The
has
proof
his
is
own
in the
tree,
pudding
but at
right
the end
now
of the
in y'all's
day, he
conference.
comes from the Parcells tree.
division.
What about homeboy in Detroit, Mr. Patricia? Jury's still out.
I just
You
some
know
people
what?
just aren't people.
At
He's
the end
not.
At the end of the day, you look at what he's done in Detroit this season, and he's done better than anyone else. So
In a while.
Yeah, but
take that for what it's worth, right? It's
trying
still
to
Detroit.
be Bill Belichick, trying to walk into a new situation, and trying to just Belichick the whole team, all the practices,
Yeah.
the media, the way that he handles them. If he doesn't see exponential growth in his rate of success over the next 2 seasons, they're gonna want to run him out of town because
I think
players aren't huge fans.
you have to build that up, right? You have to build up that. You can't start a new job and start showing up late and be like, "What? I deliver," because you haven't delivered anything, right? You have to put those pelts on the wall, if you will,
Right.
right? To
Here's an example of how Patricia's been carrying himself in Detroit. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, in a press conference, clearly there had been some tension building between this beat reporter and Patricia. But Patricia was asked a question by this guy, and rather than answer it, or maybe quickly answered it, but the main gist of his answer was, "Why don't you stop slouching when you're talking to me? I mean, be professional. Like, sit up, have some
Wow.
respect for this process." We're talking about a guy that's worn his hat backwards for how long?
And
With a
wearing a
pencil
hoodie,
and the
wearing a
sloppy
hoodie.
outfit. Of all the people to look at somebody and say,
Carry
conduct
yourself.
yourself in a more professional manner. Talk about being hypocritical and undermining the people's ability to respect you. Like, that's the attitude that I think he came into Detroit with. Like, respect me now because of my tenure with Bill Belichick. And he's not gone the proper route to earning that respect. So I think that ultimately is going to be a big failure.
Well,
And I think
it's a
in
big
two-
wake-up call when, the dust settles, you go to that first practice and you realize that you don't have Tom Brady.
McDaniels in
Right.
Denver.
You have
Right.
Matt
Look,
Stafford.
man, I mean,
Yeah.
but you look
Yeah.
at Stafford, and he can deliver a ball. Honestly, he probably has a better arm than Brady. He just doesn't have the
The
decision
intangibles,
making, the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
and
And I know we want to
system,
move
all
off
those
the
other
NFL,
things.
but there's
No,
some,
we want to move off the Detroit Lions.
there's something to be said though. Stafford is a good case study for the detrimental impact of just consistently retooling the offense. New OC,
Yeah,
new head coach
he
every
hasn't
year.
had that
We'll
consistency.
never know what Matt Stafford could have been in a stable situation.
But you look at him
Ev-
in his unstable situation, and he's put up stats.
But think
right?
about
But
He's one of those
ultimately, he
first
always
ones-
fails. Right?
He's one of
No,
those
his
first ones
team
that got
always
paid
fails.
with
Huge
somewhat
money.
guaranteed money.
He's
And
also
so you look at that.
He's also one of those first guys that came out of that Texas football 7-on-7, where there's no running plays. So from a very early age, this dude was flinging the ball.
But that's another conversation for another day about when you dedicate such a large percentage of your cap space to one player,
position.
and it's been happening a lot. I mean, the best examples currently are the quarterbacks, and you look no further than Kirk Cousins. We were talking about Russell Wilson earlier. Those teams,
Green Bay.
I don't think it's coincidental that these teams
Look at
fall
Green
off
Bay.
a cliff. Like, I
They
think
paid
Green
Aaron
Bay was
Rodgers
so
way too
arrogant.
much money.
Green Bay was so arrogant that every time Aaron Rodgers lost his number one receiver, it was just plug and play. That they got to a point where they literally thought that the two of us
Yeah, it could be
could-
stuck
could
in
be
there.
wide
and
receiver
because they
1 and
have
2.
Aaron Rodgers, then you and
And
I could be Jerry Rice.
This
and-
is where they find
it's-
themselves
it's
now.
ridiculous.
Seattle, I think, is the prime example, right? When
I
you
think
had
Green
Russell
Bay's a good one,
Wilson
too.
as a second round pick, getting second round pick money, and you were able to fund a Legion of Boom, right? You had them in the Super Bowl consecutive seasons, right? They had shit they should have won to. But
Marshawn Lynch.
but you pay Russell Wilson, right? And you have to let Richard Sherman go. You have to let Michael Bennett go. And these dudes are still performing at a high level for other teams, getting it done because you couldn't afford to keep them.
And a few poor decisions have not helped that cause there. Like trading a great offensive lineman for Jimmy Graham, I think, which was in response
I
to.
mean, they traded a draft pick for a great offensive lineman in Dwayne Brown, and they've made other moves too.
But they've always been trying to catch up on the receiving corps since they paid Wilson. Is my point.
Yeah, well, and
Right.
and I think the move in not keeping Golden Tate and letting him get away to
He's one of the ones that popped
to
in my
Detroit.
head.
I mean
Right.
that specifically coincides with the beginning of their downfall.
There
They
was some
couldn't
off the
keep
field stuff apparently that was never going to be reconciled.
between Golden Tate and him. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's unfortunate because honestly, they were a hell of a tandem. I know we rode Golden Tate one year.
But of all the, a lot of receivers have changed teams over the past several years since what you refer to as that tipping point, Seattle's offense. They haven't been able to go pay a Brandon Cooks or another guy of that caliber because of how much money they have invested at the quarterback position. So I think what we're seeing and what they were able to do under his rookie deal is being evidenced yet again
Yeah.
with what Kansas City's doing on Mahomes' rookie deal, with up until very recently
but even though,
LA's done on Goff's rookie
but
deal.
even Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt were all on rookie deals. So
Right.
you're talking about 3 of their 4 main skill positions all on rookie deals.
But
the
the-
only one making money is Travis
The
Kelce.
most important is the quarterback, and I read an article recently that contended or suggested that the Rams could actually be building this juggernaut of a team and then go away from Goff at the end of his rookie deal if they find another quarterback. And that's never when has that been done before? Because they recognize the necessity for having a stellar quarterback, but on that rookie deal. And all these other guys are on rookie deals. Look at the Browns. But it's Baker Mayfield being on the rookie deal that's going to allow them, during his rookie contract, to pay a Legion of Boom or whatever else it is that they need to pay. So there's several examples of this around the NFL right now. And what's interesting.
Do you see the disparity here? It's either you're making $100 million or you're on a rookie deal.
Or you're guaranteed $30 million, right?
It's very that middle ground.
That's kind of what that
is starting
slotted
to
salary cap
not exist anymore
for the rookie.
But it's purgatory also.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, we've seen it. We're watching it this season with
So
Green Bay, with Minnesota.
But I think the middle ground. There are teams that are paying their Just if you did the math, there are quarterbacks that fall smack dab in the middle or the mean of quarterback salaries. And I guarantee when you look at that list, you're going to see teams that are just swimming in purgatory, middle of the pack, not going anywhere, no hope.
The Ryan Tannehills of the world.
And then the teams that are overpaid, the middle of the pack are middle of the pack. Teams that are overpaying their quarterback are falling off a cliff. And teams that have quarterbacks
you win a Super Bowl.
on team-friendly rookie deals
I get it, but you win a Super Bowl.
are the teams that are excelling right now.
Look, that Joe Flacco deal was bad when they signed it. It's even worse right now because that dude is making so much more than the guy that's playing better than him. But look, that's the way it goes. That's why they have the rookie pay scale the way that they do. Because before you had the Sam Bradford deal where this dude who never played a snap in his life was making more than Tom Brady, right? Should never happen ever, right? And I think everybody universally agrees with that. But these rookie deals with things like the franchise tag, with things like that fourth-year team option, right? The control that the team has over the player when they're young is what's allowing these.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was Matt Stafford that made that rule change. It was because of him.
It was Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford made that.
Speaking of Bradford, how much money did Arizona pay him to come in this year and never take a snap?
That dude made so much money in his NFL career.
Multiple times over, he's been paid on potential like no other player, right?
I don't want to have his life, but I'd love to have his paychecks.
But check it out. What the formula that we're describing right now of having a quarterback that can be good to excellent on a rookie deal. Think about the flip side of that. If you have the wrong people scouting talent and you start to construct a football team based on the rookie quarterback formula and you end up with a Josh Rosen and what he potentially might be, how much further behind are you setting yourself? Because you've constructed every other part of your team to function around.
Is Josh Rosen that terrible? I mean, it's hard to say in someone's rookie season.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Like that. I
mean, they called him. Look, from one Jew to another.
It's becoming pretty.
When they called him the chosen Rosen, that was it. Like he's throwing terrible passes at UCLA that were touchdowns, and talking about how this guy's going to be a stud in the NFL.
And then his head coach from UCLA went on a national media tour talking about how he was not the right fit for the team with the number 1 pick.
Don't get me started on that.
Do you remember the night of the draft?
Yeah, no.
Remember the night of the draft?
I'm well aware of chosen Rosen.
There were 9 mistakes made before Arizona drafted him. The other day he threw an unbelievably bad interception, and I feel like there were 9 mistakes made before he threw that interception.
Before he threw that interception, all by him.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, let's wrap up the NFL. Do we care about the NFC? I mean, Saints. Rams stumbling.
Rams are stumbling. So I was all set to have a take on the Rams stumbling and how my conspiracy theory brain had devised today that McVay took his foot off the gas purposely because they're in a decent position, and all the trinkets and trick plays that they run, he removed those from the playbook for the past couple weeks because he's playing a couple of teams that potentially would be in the playoffs. And therefore takes his foot off the gas. They've got 2 winnable games right now, so they're sitting pretty to retain a week 1 bye in the playoffs anyway. So did he potentially take away part of the playbook in an effort to deceive everyone into a level of comfortability?
So you don't think it has to do with the missing pieces at wide receiver?
It's Cooper Kupp. I think when I heard someone just mention his name as I was driving over here today when they were talking about the Rams falling off, and I think that's probably the biggest thing is
Cooper Kupp. Not just Cooper Kupp.
It was their lack of depth on the Rams is what made them. They've lost multiple pieces, and they don't have the depth to
Cooper
supplement.
Kupp the spark plug.
Right.
He was
Josh
the Gronk,
Reynolds is not.
He's their possession receiver.
but
Josh Reynolds is
Cooper
not
Kupp
a-
was operating.
He was the safety blanket.
He was the
real
safety
quick, who's
blanket
the
that
best
Goff
team?
was utilizing on a regular basis, and it was opening everything up. And it doesn't hurt when you have Brandon Cooks on the outside.
Who's the best team in the NFC in your opinion?
It's crazy because the way we started this segment was like the NFL is on its head right now. 2 weeks ago, I would have said the Rams. I think it's the Saints, but then look at how much they struggled this.
What about you? What would you say?
I mean, I would still say it's the Saints, but I would say it's the Saints because they have Drew Brees at the helm, and their defense over the last several weeks, it has been out of this world. You look at what their defense is doing, and that's what's keeping them in games. It used to be their offense could hang with anybody. Right now, their defense is
So for me, I'd have to go with Chicago, and I know that it's kind of contrarian, but when you're speaking about defenses, they
It's
might
not
have the
contrarian.
best in the NFL, and it might be by a large margin.
and their offense with their run game with that.
I've heard a
Jordan
lot of
Howard,
flack
Tariq Cohen and stuff.
on Mitchell Trubisky this year from a lot of the talking heads and media nationwide, but this kid is on point.
I don't even know who Mitchell Trubisky is, but why are people dogging him? Like, give him a chance.
Yeah, no, give him
this
give him a
guy.
shot.
He was apparently picked before both Mahomes and
Was he one of the
and Deshaun
mistakes?
Watson.
Trubisky.
Was
Yeah,
he one of
was
the mistakes?
No, that was a year earlier. But
Oh, okay, then he was definitely one of the mistakes.
he's one of the mistakes people feel like the Browns made for sure. I know we want to get off of football. I think you're right. Immediately when you brought up the Bears and their defense, the thought popped in my head like, how long is it before somebody assassinates John Gruden for what he's done to the Oakland Raiders?
Look, he's
Is that going to happen to
he's
somebody?
the MVP of the Bears and the who else?
The Raiders have the most
and
violent,
Cowboys.
rabid fan base in the NFL. Someone's going to kill John Gruden for trading away Khalil Mack.
He might
Right?
have locked up the NFC North and the NFC
Yeah, single-handedly by himself.
East.
John
Right,
Gruden
with the
and
Amari
or
Cooper
Khalil
trade.
Mack.
That's true.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Dude, no, he
So
could.
Gruden maybe.
Yeah.
Now there's other
But-
factors in Oakland, like
They're gonna have
They-
4 first-round picks, y'all. You got 3 first-round.
No,
picks.
I love it. I think
Yeah.
that it's
the uncertainty
Who knows
of
what he's
First-round
there are mumblings and grumblings out of Oakland that they were not going to be able to pay those guys, and that he was forced. His hand was forced. That the team needed money that they didn't have, and they're trying to plot a move to another city.
no wait,
And
wait, wait,
his
wait.
hands were tied.
How much did
so
they pay that idiot? How much did they pay him? Like $100
10
million?
years.
That's
dollars?
exactly.
10 years, $100 million all year.
All right,
But
so,
but he's not gonna. Are you gonna turn that money down? That's not his fault.
no.
That's the front office's fault for paying him that money, and then bringing him in and saying, "All right, we're not going to be able to sign Cooper. We're not going to be able to sign Mack. We got to get rid of those guys."
I mean,
And he now looks like the fall guy that
When
we're
you look at
describing.
Mark
That's
Davis's
fine, but it's a
haircut,
great-
Like, how can you honestly
They-
think that guy's serious in a contract?
we could sit here and
Wait,
talk
who?
about
Mark
Al Davis. Oh, Mike
Mark
Davis.
Mark
Mark Davis.
I don't know.
No, dude.
How can you take it? I
Google
can't
his-
even.
Google
I
his bowl
can't even
cut.
talk right now.
Google
Just
his
picturing
billionaire
face.
bowl cut.
It's the best.
I
It's
know.
one of the best. It's the Dumb and Dumber.
I mean,
Like it's the full bowl.
He looks like a doll, like an ugly doll that my daughter would beg to have because for some reason she thinks it's cute, and it would haunt my nightmares if I ever allowed her to bring it home.
Well, then
That's
don't
what
look
it
at that
looks like.
picture.
him
No,
and
I've
that,
seen it. I can picture
him
it
and
right
that
now.
Coke air should like just hang out and just
So
do a podcast.
in
Yeah.
3 or 4
I
years,
saw that article.
we
the
might
other
be
day.
eating our words right now. It might look like the most brilliant shit ever.
No. I mean,
But right now,
it could be the
you have-
Astros tanking. Right?
yeah, if you're a Raiders fan, you have to be fucking furious.
Who's making those draft picks? That's what we need to look at and look into.
Well, I'll
Well,
tell
right
you.
now it's going to be John Gruden.
The
There ain't nobody else
new
to make
GM of the team, right? Did they just fire the GM
They did.
and so he's
So-
got full reign over everything.
What do we know? Do we know anything about his ability to
draft?
scout talent?
About
in the
who?
draft?
John
I mean,
About
haven't you
John
seen
Gruden.
his QB
Oh.
camps?
Right.
2Y banana, whatever
Right.
the fuck he talks about. Spider
I
Y
can't.
banana.
We talked about. You brought up John Madden earlier. Now we're talking about John Gruden. The only thing I think of when those guys come up is homeboy that used to be on Mad TV. What's his name? The guy that does all
Oh
the
yeah,
impressions.
Frank
Frank
Caliendo.
Caliendo, that's
Caliendo,
all.
man.
I don't think about those guys. I think about Frank
The impression
Caliendo
of those
doing those guys.
I think
When you
he's
talk
still,
about those
I think
guys.
he's still on Fox
can't.
on Sunday morning.
Dude.
Ta.
Dude, his John
He
Madden.
does a good one, you know.
This John Madden is it's
Dude, all his
It's
on
impressions
point,
are
you know.
on point, man.
his John Madden is more John Madden than John Madden. Kind
Yeah,
of like
John Madden has
like-
to practice his own.
if I say these two words to you right now, tell me who you think of immediately. Harry Carey.
Oh, Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, like immediately, like I don't think of Harry Carey. I immediately think of Will Ferrell
He does a good Harry
doing
Carey.
Harry Carey, right? Same thing. We've talked about football for too long. Jarvis Landry stuff I wanted to talk about is not a timely topic. We'll talk about it another time.
Look, next week, let's talk about Jarvis Landry and let's talk about the salary cap constraint with the quarterback salaries, because I think those are two pretty good things. Because I mean, the Jarvis Landry thing is going to fall in line with that, because we're talking about the
Absolutely.
percentage of salary cap for a player. Really, you know, I hate to say this, but our producer Trey is right. That Steeler way is probably the best way, which is what gives them that longevity and consistency, right? They're going to pay you what they pay you, and that's what they're willing to pay that position. And I think Le'Veon Bell found that out the hard way, and I think other team is going to benefit from that lesson.
And I'm Trey's a huge Steelers fan, and I'm a Browns fan. I made the mistake earlier in the garage of trying to argue with him about why I thought the Steelers made a poor decision. I just want to apologize publicly, Trey. I'm sorry. I should not discuss the Steelers with you. So.
It's not about what he said. It's about where he said it.
Notice the fan zone picture over the top there. I'm not going to say we placed the Cleveland Brown fan under that on purpose, but it just so happened to work
I've been
out
living
that way.
underneath that umbrella my entire life.
Living your life.
This is just symbolic of what my life has been.
What's going on in the association?
Real quick, before we get into that, let's take a break. Let our sponsors get a word in edgewise, and we'll be back.
Fair enough.